Everyone should get a passport if we're going to be living in a multipolar world, because it means we got to go understand what the hell else is going on out there. The problem is it's nearly impossible to get a passport right now. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. It turns out, while our government is shipping billions of dollars to Ukraine and our Secretary of State is always worried about what, like social issues and all this, that the very basics of his job not working very well. There is a massive backlog of passport applications, quote, creating summer travel nightmares for Americans who are finding getting a new passport or renewing an expired one is taking months on end, forcing them now into panicked races against planned travel dates in an often bewildering bureaucratic maze. The thing is that this is a bipartisan issue. Senators and congressmen are sounding the alarm because they are getting bombarded with constituent complaints of, I can't get a goddamn passport. And it's amazing because the State Department current guidance right now is that you should apply for a renewed passport for 9 to 12 weeks ahead of your travel date. That is 4 months of the processing time. It used to be that routine was 6 to 8 weeks for renewing your passport. The crazy thing is that it used to be 6 to 8 weeks. They haven't been able to fulfill that deadline. So people who were promised their passports not getting their passports and are now, they're like, oh, no, it's going to take weeks and weeks and more, and we have no update for you. If you have the privilege to pay like $200 or whatever for expedited service, well, even that is now returned to what the original promise was. So it's outrageously expensive in order to get a passport. I remember I had a passport nightmare situation too. I got really lucky because it was before the big surge. I was able to get one of those emergency appointments here in Washington, D.C. It cost like $250. And I remember thinking about that, being like, wait, if you have a family of 4 or a family of 5, that's like $1,000 in order to get your passport. That's not,
that's like a plane ticket. That's a lot overseas, right there. Yeah.
Actually, I wish it was a plane ticket overseas.
Oh, really?
Nowadays,
I haven't been overseas for a while.
To an overseas plane ticket. Yeah, try $3,000 if you're going to Asia like I was. The thing is that when you think about it, one of the most basic functions here of government is just breaking down and a touch point where millions of Americans are finding themselves fed up. That is actually where states begin to lose the population. It's not always some of the big stuff that we talk about here. It's like, getting your driver's license renewed. Always a pain in the ass, but usually you can get it, in a semi-routine fashion. The thing is with the passports, like when it breaks down like that, and millions of people have to cancel their plans, that is when people really start to understand, like, the state functions at a most basic level. When those are going away, that's what declining states look like. And, I'm not exaggerating, put this up there. This is from just a few weeks ago that other media organizations are talking about. Canceled trips with no refunds, passport delays are derailing travelers. People are out thousands of dollars on these trips because they are not able to get their passport in time. It's not like the airline's going to give you a good, excuse for that one. They're like, oh yeah, we got you. Also, millions of people were locked inside for years. That's part of the reason why travel prices are so high, because people put off travel, and a lot of people didn't renew their passport then at the time. So we have a record amount of Americans, which I think is great, who do want to travel. They want to get out of the country and are unable to. We've got some 22 million passports that were issued last year. That's a record high. 24 million right now that are currently going through. The State Department says it's getting about 400,000 applications a week from Americans in order to renew their passport. But the fact that they are unable to keep up with it just shows you that, like, those, again, the basic functions of government are just falling apart. It's like the FAA and it's like others. And for some reason, it's not getting the attention that it really deserves.
Well, no one should be surprised when we've had 40 years of both parties attacking government and stripping government capacity. I mean, this has been the ideology since Ronald Reagan. So yeah, after 40 years, things are going to fall apart. Just to give you a sense of, I know this can seem like a first world problem, and in some ways it is, right? Having the luxury and the ability to travel overseas. But in that piece from NPR, they talked to this woman, Dakota Hendricks from Virginia Beach, Virginia. She says she did everything right in order to try to visit her husband, who's deployed overseas this summer. This is like her only opportunity to see him. She filed an application for a new passport months in advance, paid for expedited processing to make sure. She spent hours on the phone with the passport hotline, sought help from her local congressman. 4 months later, she had no choice but to miss her flight. She told NPR, "I applied for this with enough cushion room for there to be delays, but that didn't matter." So she was unable to make that trip to go see her husband who is deployed overseas. So there's a lot of heartbreak that comes along with this, not to mention just the sign of a government that's falling apart. There was this line in the, the initial report that we had up on the screen from Senator Mark Warner, who was blaming hiring freezes during the Trump administration for helping to create this situation. And I sort of assumed that was probably cope from Democrats. But I actually looked into it, and there is something to this. So Trump had this, sort of like vendetta against the State Department. This is where Hillary Clinton was, part of the deep state, et cetera, et cetera. And so you not only had the pandemic, which led to all sorts of issues, led to this huge backlog, led to this huge surge, record-breaking numbers of Americans who wanted to be able to get passports. You also had under Trump a 16-month hiring freeze that, according to Government Executive Magazine, which is the thing that I was reading to try to get information on this, told its inspector general in 2019 that it created critical understaffing for passport services. In 2017, you're going to love this, Saagar, you're going to enjoy this. In 2017, when passport applications started to spike, the State Department implemented a number of resiliency initiatives to help workers deal with the added strain, including management meet and greets and casual dress days.
Oh, good.
Officials also deployed Passport Pete, a stuffed porcupine mascot, to regional offices for photo opportunities and activities. Unfortunately, those efforts failed to reverse the workforce trend.
Yeah.
So staffing was sort of stripped down during the Trump years. Then they had this huge surge post-pandemic of Americans wanting to get passports, record-breaking numbers. They've been trying to staff up, but it's just, they haven't been able to get it together.
I just saw a guy.
Passport Pete couldn't rescue him.
I just saw a guy yesterday. He said he had to wait 2.5 hours to process customs at Dulles. 2.5 hours because the TSA had like 2 passport booths or whatever that was open. I had the same thing. I landed in JFK. I think it took me 1 hour and 45 minutes in order to clear customs. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And there was only, 3 planes or whatever at the tarmac. I landed at like 6 a.m. in the morning, maybe 700 people. I've moved through lines like that years ago. You'll get through in maybe 5-10 minutes, something like that. This was, it's just over and over again. You're seeing complete breakdowns of the most basic government functions whenever it comes to travel. And like you said, it can sound like a first world problem, but a lot of middle class people, I mean, I grew up in Texas. You don't have to be rich to go to Mexico. You need a passport. Or people who from New York, I mean, they're going to Canada all the time. Or, if you, like you said, it's like you got this woman whose husband is deployed overseas. He apparently, the way his schedule works, only had 1 break. That was the only time in order to get. That's terrible.
That is really
it's just terrible. And there's a lot of, let me tell you, one of the worst places on earth that you want to go to is an emergency passport center. Everybody there is weeping because everybody there, basically the only way to get one of those is if you've got a dead relative. It's really sad. Wow. People are like weeping there like, oh, I've been trying to get my passport. My, grandma just died in Africa or whatever. I got to get this back. I got to get on a plane like tomorrow. I need this thing right now. It's real life here is actually affecting people. And these, I just can't get away from what it really shows about the government right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are things like, I know it's easy to just deride government bureaucrats, or it feels like it doesn't really impact your life, but this is a place where it really matters to have enough skilled professionals in place and a system in place and to take it seriously to be able to deliver on basic services for the American people. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.